Communication barriers in marriage can arise from various factors, such as poor listening skills, differences in communication styles, lack of empathy, unresolved conflicts, and emotional distance. Now, these barriers can lead to misunderstandings in marriage, resentment, and a breakdown in the marital relationship. Welcome to Insight today. I am Jumai Manson. Don't go anywhere. The program continues shortly. Stick around. You're welcome back, and if you're just tuning in, it's Inside Today on Global Television, and we're looking at marriage and, of course, communication barriers. And I am being joined by engineer Anita Aka. She works with Geonita Global Trends and Nigeria, and of course, she is an engineer, civil engineer to be precise. She's a mom, she's a wife. How you doing, Anita?
I'm good.
It's great to have you on the program.
Same here.
All right, talking about marriage and of course communication barriers, what's your take? What do you term as communication barriers?
Well, communication barrier, I see it as a restraint in between couples in marriage, and I know that it can be of various causes. So communication barrier is more like that bridge that comes between your joy and your happiness between your partner. That's how I understand communication barrier.
But how come, in marriage, the first year, the second year is always the best? People say that's when you are all around each other, you talk about things, he tells you practically everything. But what happens 8 years? Okay, I think it's too far. Let's say 5 years down the line, 6 years, 7 years, 8 years, 10 years, 15 years, various couples tend to drift apart. They stop talking, they stop relating with one another, resentment comes in, jealousy comes in, strife comes in. How do you break such chains? I know you've been married for a very long time.
Yeah. Let me take, for instance, that bridge after your first 2 years or 3 years in marriage, children start coming in. And most times, I want to use myself as an example. When I got married to my husband, the first year immediately I took in and I had my son. I put all my time. Childbearing is quite so demanding. So all my strength, my time was just on my child. And I never knew that my husband was not happy with it, because he was kind of person that is more like the quiet kind of person. He doesn't express himself freely. So I only notice it from my mother. He goes to complain to my mom that I don't give him time, I don't give him attention. God bless you. So I started noticing that. And what my mom was doing for me then, or my mother-in-law, what they do, maybe weekends, they'll come, stay with my baby, then we'll just go out and hang out and just bring back that spice in our home. So childbearing, number one, is part of the conflicts that we normally have with communication. Then I also want to talk about finances. That is also another strong factor, in the sense that most times when we are courting, most of us are not truthful to each other. We don't want to, open up to your spouse on your income or maybe your progress level and stuff. So when you come together, you now start seeing that's that's being truthful in your finances, being exposed, telling your partner what you are earning, or maybe some other thing. Maybe your partner is spending so much. Maybe your partner don't want to follow the budget according to your income. These are factors that can really cause communication barriers. Then I also want to talk about intimacy. That intimacy is also, I would say, it's aligned with childbearing or childbirth. It's also aligned to that, because intimacy, when children start coming in, you notice that the mother as in her focus is more on the child,
and not the
so
husband anymore.
exactly. So most times, you know, the childbearing is quite, like I said, it's quite exhausting. When time you're nursing an infant, during the night, in the day, you know, you're still exhausted. Your husband wants to come for some intimacy, and you notice that you're so worn out and you're
But
tired.
I want to ask you something, Anita. Why is this burden on the woman alone? The man should make the effort to spice it up. Don't you think so?
Yeah.
So that communication barrier will not be there, will not linger. They say it takes two to
tango.
And of course, she did not make herself pregnant. He actually was part and parcel of that process. But do you know, I see that the burden is more on the woman. The woman is the one that has to ensure that there is love again. The woman is the one that has to ensure that there is intimacy. The woman is the one that has to ensure that he is all right, he is fine. What happened? What role is the man playing in all of this?
Yeah, I want to say that, let me say 60% of that role or impact should come from the woman. They are the ones wearing that shoe. The man is not feeling it. He might be experiencing it. He might be, you know, noticing it, but he's not feeling it.
Okay.
Take, for instance, like when we are nursing, you wake up in the morning, the husband is not really there. Yes, he might be there sleeping. He'll wake up. My husband will wake up with me. We want to carry the baby when the baby is crying. I'm breastfeeding. And after breastfeeding, he helps me out, puts the baby back. Before I would calculate my sleeping time, you know, maybe it's almost done and I need to wake up and start taking care of the other children, making breakfast and stuff. So I understand where you're coming from. Like the man or the men are also, they must also contribute.
Exactly,
they must. But if they bring, like my husband, he contributed. He will come with some things to make, but I'm always so tired. I am always so tired.
But I want to ask a question. You see, some women, when they get married, they become a shadow of themselves.
Exactly.
I see women, and I tell women a lot. For those of you, I understand that we are Nigerians, we have traditions, we have norms, we have values. But sometimes in the bedroom, that space in the bedroom is where you should spice it up completely. Like, I see women, let's say the bed sheets, the curtains, the room should be a place where it just ignites everything. As in, the living room could be there, it could be, but it's your own private place where you are with your husband to just spice things up a bit. That's the woman he fell in love with. That one that was very explosive, that one that was very adventurous. But I just see that when marriage happens, the first year, the second year, the third, fourth year, things start dwindling down. Is it because the husband has stopped saying, "Oh, you look beautiful today. Oh, you're very intelligent," or something? And some of these men give compliments to other women outside. So that's, and then she just goes into her shell, Anita. She just stops talking. She's always is now a fine, yes or no answer. That communication where I sit down and I ask you, how is the job going? Welcome, that welcome hug, that welcome peck you get on your cheek, the kiss you get on your lips, all of that just is in the shadows. How does that affect the marriage and, of course, communication barrier?
That is a number one, I will call it a number one factor of communication barrier. You as a woman, you were married and the man didn't see you looking dirty and haggard.
Exactly.
He saw you like a very bright diamond or pearl. And now he brought you together, you came together, and all of a sudden you leave yourself like there is nothing. You forgot that bed, that room is an altar for you. That is the place where you can resolve things. That is the place where you can communicate. And also, exactly. So I don't see any woman, regardless. I just want to say, I'm not saying that women have 100% of I don't know the word to put. But what I'm only saying is that it is not left for the women alone, though. But a woman should not leave herself to look haggard. You must spice up yourself, even if it's not giving you that how do I call it the highlights. But you should know that whether your husband is there or your husband is not there, maintain that same standard that you were when he saw you.
Exactly.
Regardless of your childbearing or whatever that is happening in your home. But maintain that particular spice that made him look at you.
Exactly.
That's just what I want to say.
And also talking about some other women, I see some women will leave their hair. You see some, and these are some of the factors that cause communication barriers, and the man just stops talking to you because he finds other women attractive outside. He sees that these other women are more attractive, they look nicer, and some women just leave their hair. They don't apply. I know you might not like makeup, but at least a little bit of lip gloss.
Yes.
And if the man stops telling you all of these things, there's some men that will actually come out and tell you, what happened to your makeup? Or what happened to your hair? What happened? And then you keep doing the same thing as a woman. Is that why he goes into his shadow also and just leave that space blank?
You know, when I got married, I'm the kind of person that I was really, when I come home, take off everything, I wear my shorts, I wear my singlet, I look like one dirty looking stuff. My husband will come, oh, you've not done your nails, you've not done this, you're not wearing this. He keep complaining, and I was like, why is this man so vain? Why is he so filled with vanity? I never knew that was more like a sign until I met a friend who called me and told me, said, no, Anita, I don't like the way you dress. Go and get bomb shot instead of this. Go make your hair, dress, put your nails. When I started doing that, my dear, even if I'm in the kitchen, he will come and hug me, just throw a kiss on my neck and stuff. So I believe that as a woman, I see that we are like the glory of God, represent the glory of God. And people should see you and glorify God. So, including your husband. So you are supposed to look exactly how you want to be treated. So that is what I would need to say on that. Whether you don't have the money to make your hair, but please do it nicely and look good for your husband.
Look the part. You know, you mentioned something very vital. You said 60% work falls on the woman.
Yes.
The woman is actually God first, and then the woman is the pillar of that home.
Yeah, I believe so.
And exactly when the man is also going astray, the woman is the person that will have to always try to bring him back home. You must never allow him to just stray away and all of that. You must play that part as a woman, as a matriarch of that home. All right, now let's quickly go on a very quick break, and we're talking more about communication barriers in marriage, the role and lack of empathy that plays in causing communication barriers in a marital relationship. Do not go anywhere. The program Inside Today continues shortly. Stay tuned. You are welcome back, and if you're just tuning in, it's Global Television and it's the program Inside Today, and we're looking at a very sensitive topic. It's titled Communication Barriers, and I am not doing it alone. I have by my side engineer Mrs. Anita Aka. She works with the Geonita Global Trends Nigeria, and yes, I mentioned at the beginning, well, if you're just tuning in, she is a mother, she's a wife, and yes, she's a civil engineer. Yes, she is. And we're looking at communication barriers, and it has been an exciting talk that we've been talking about it, chatting about it. And let's look at something very crucial now. Okay. Let's look at what role does lack of empathy play in causing communication barriers in a marital relationship when the man or the woman doesn't have feelings anymore. I'm done. I know we've been married for 15 years, but hey, LOVE doesn't exist. So how do we make it better? How do we make it right?
Well, in that particular case, you know, I always tell people, when you feel that toxic nature amongst maybe between between couples, I always believe in just give yourself time, just separate. I'm not talking about divorce here.
No.
I'm talking about separation, because I know irritation comes, and I know that I don't know how to put the word, that feeling of hatred begins to creep in, and you know what that can bring about. Battering, that could bring about physical abuse.
Violence.
So I believe on that particular aspect, when it's in between couples, I would just advise for a little separation. A little separation does not mean they should go their separate ways, but while they're separated, they could still, go seek counseling and know what the problem is and see how they can fix their marriage.
But how did it get to that point?
Yes,
where lack of empathy has now crept into a marriage relationship. How did we get to that point?
I think it has to do with lack of sensitivity. When we are not sensitive to our partner's feelings, it can lead to that particular point.
What sort of feelings are we talking about here?
Talking about, that, sometimes we can just feign blind eyes, or maybe, let's say, being ignorant to some of the things. Before something happens, it starts, they said a little drop of water makes the mighty ocean. So before anything would have extended or maybe would have blown out, there is just a few steps coming up. Take, for instance, maybe a couple, they're living together happily, then in the side of finance, and they're not being truthful about it, or maybe the husband or the wife is jealous of the husband's finance. It can happen in marriage.
Sure, it does.
Such kind of thing, before you know it, jealousy comes in, and when there is jealousy, you start seeing that you're being threatened, you're being afraid, and men, they don't like to be threatened. They don't want their wives to rob to, no matter how high the woman
they
is.
Have an ego problem.
Exactly. So when they cannot match to that, you start seeing jealousy, you start seeing hatred, then before you know, that resentment, that empathy, lack of empathy comes in, and separation comes in. So like I said, when they are not sensitive, when you're not sensitive to the feeling of your partner, it could lead to that conflict barrier.
Yeah, I like that fact that you said when you're not sensitive, because many women are not sensitive.
Including men.
Many women and many men are not sensitive to feelings of the woman. Right now, let's relate to what is happening in the country now. We hear a lot of economic hardship. The man has to go out, fend for the family, and some women are not appreciative. Someone will tell you you're not doing better. Your friends have bought this, your friends have bought that. Comparison, all of these things can actually cause what you've said, not being sensitive or not being supportive in that aspect. Now, let's look at how do unresolved conflicts contribute to communication breakdown in marriage, where you have to procrastinate. You've done something wrong, we'll talk about it later. Stop, we'll talk about it later. Stop, we'll talk about it later.
Exactly.
Stop, we'll talk about...
that's when most men use the word nagging. They use that word nagging.
Oh, they're procrastinating the matter.
Some of them will come to tell me, "Oh, Anita, she's a nagging woman." Why do you think she's nagging? Because she's always reminding you of that thing. And is that why you say she's nagging? So I see that when you ask the question about why, what can lead to that unresolved conflicts. Now, when you have a conflict, I always beg people, do not let that day go by without resolving it. Because when it stays overnight, you see the mind, when we are sleeping, sometimes before we sleep, we think, we do have some imagination. It leads to something else. And before you know, you keep assuming something that might not even be real from your partner.
Or be there.
Exactly. So at the end of the day, it starts building up. Your mind starts telling you what to do, even when you know it's not real. So when that conflict is not being resolved, I always advise people, please bring down your pride and make sure you resolve this thing before the day.
But let me ask you something, Anita. When is the time to take your partner's word for it? There's some partners that can lie. Let me say lie for Africa. Some will tell you, I am here with my friend and he's somewhere else. And they always say, always trust your instinct as a woman. When there is that, like you mentioned, you say your mind can actually play that trick on
Very
you.
well.
But sometimes, have you worked with the woman's instinct? Sometimes it's accurate. When she feels that her husband is doing something, and if she is a detective like most women,
That's our calling.
That's our calling. So women are detectives. They can actually fish out what the police cannot see. They will bring it out. But do you think sometimes your instinct can play a foul play?
Very well. Sometimes I always say, let the sleeping dog lie. Sometimes you want to go and dig out things
that are not there,
or they are there, but just let it lie. You asked me that how will you know when your partner is lying or when a partner is lying? I know that we all know our spouses. We know who we marry.
But some do not know.
No, they should know, because you can't just marry someone you do not know.
You know what?
Marriage is all about, it's a learning process. It's like something like an onion that has layers. It keeps unveiling itself.
Exactly.
You keep knowing the person, even when you thought you've known the person for ages, but you're just knowing the person immediately. So what I want to say is, I know when my husband is telling a lie. Oh yes, I know when he's lying. And when he says, I'm like, Oga liar. I don't call him lying. So, what I'm trying to say is, I know we know, but sometimes you let things slide. Not because you are not a detective like our calling is, but because for the sake of peace, you let it slide. But I always advise people, it's best you tell the truth. They said, you shall know the truth and it will set you free.
Very true.
When you tell the truth, I will defend you as your wife, regardless. So I believe that when we keep, hiding things from our spouses, we are not helping matters. So no matter the grievance, the level of hurt or whatever, expose it to her. She will cherish you for that particular defense. So that's my own thing.
I want to add to what you've just said. I think maturity has a lot to do with it.
Exactly.
I like the fact when you say allow sleeping dogs lie. There was a friend of mine who mentioned, she said, at a point in her marriage, she has been married for 35 years. Wow. And then she said, and I asked and I said, how come you have lasted this long? And she said, Jumai, I realize men, there's a time in their life where there is something called youthful exuberance.
Yeah.
He wants to still be that 18-year-old. That 20-year-old, you see him at the point wearing plain trousers. Next thing you see him wearing jeans, shorts, and you just wonder, are you okay? What's wrong? You just allow these sort of things. He wants to see how well he can woo a girl and sees if she says yes. But some people take it overboard. Some people allow it to get beyond what it's supposed to be, and some just say, okay, it's just one of those things and I just come back home. So I think maturity has a role to play. I think maturity, once you start getting married, yes, maturity has a role to play in that. And one question I want to talk about before I wrap it up on the program Inside Today. Now, in what ways can poor listening skills hinder effective communication between spouses? Let me give an example. When the husband is talking and you keep interjecting, you keep cutting him short, you want to defend yourself. I think most women, do you think we have or African women, do you think we find it hard to just sit down and allow him pour out his heart without interrupting? Do you think that could lead to poor communication barrier?
I think so. Like I said earlier, my husband is of the quiet side. So when I ask him something and he's giving me his I notice I always interject. Oh, do I do that then? So, and when I interject, that period of interjection, you notice that he's almost slipping away from the truth I want to get. And at the end of the day, I'm not satisfied with his final answer. So you can see that I get angry. I want to keep malice. I don't want to talk to him. And so I believe when we keep interjecting, we see that we don't allow them, allow the spirit in them that wants to help us know something. Yes, you keep breaking it, because when you allow them talk and just look at them, just looking at somebody, sometimes our eyes can really make somebody say the truth even when they don't want to.
Exactly.
So I just believe when you know when to speak and when to be quiet, it can help you
get the truth
and avoid that conflict barrier.
Communication barrier, they say it's a very wicked tool in marriage. Where there is barrier in communications, you do not exercise that love, that value for each other. Well, still talking about this before we wrap, well, we have to wrap it up at about this time, but I would not leave without saying this. Now, effective communication in marriage involves active listening, expressing thoughts and feelings clearly, being empathetic towards your partner's perspective, and working together to resolve issues constructively. Overcoming communication barriers requires open and honest dialogue. You mentioned that,
Yeah.
Anita. And mutual respect and a willingness to understand and support each other's needs and emotions. That is something that we should hold of high value in order for you to make your marriage work. Thank you so much, Engineer Mrs. Anita Aka,
Thank you.
for being a part of Insight today. And like I said, she works with Janita Global Thread Nigeria. Thank you so much for sharing your input with us on the program. And with that, we have to wrap it up. And please try and break that communication barriers in marriage so you can have a healthy, beautiful marriage and, of course, marital relationship. I am Jumai Manson. Thank you all so much for being there. Have an amazing day ahead. Thank you again, Mrs. Anita.
You're welcome.
Thank
it's
you.
A pleasure.
Bye.